The opinions, views, and conclusions expressed in this show are those of the show host and co-host and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of KPFB FM or its affiliates.
After the Clash, a show of survival information with your host, Ed Ledesma, and co-host George Cox right here on 98.1 FM.
Hello, folks. Thank you for joining us here on After the Crash. I'm Ed Ledesma.
And I'm George Cox.
This program is based on information and survival skills to be mastered before a disaster strikes. And guess what? There is a disaster in Louisiana, and there's also a disaster over there in Afghanistan. But that's something different. But anyways, so disasters can be anything other than Mother Nature. But it's Mother Nature is doing her best, on these hurricanes. We're still in hurricane season, even though we're going towards the fall. So, as you can, I recommend that you folks watch some of these reportings and videos of those in Louisiana, how they got prepped, what they do if they're going or they're staying. So it's a learning curve for everybody, when it comes to preparedness. I myself, my experience in preparedness is based on just whatever is local and also in the military. Preparedness is very high in the military when it comes before you leave the wire. But when you don't got a chance to leave the wire, like you're home and somewhere in Louisiana, you better, brace for the worst. And there are people are bracing for the worst. And, so it's a decision making, for a person to stay or go, depending on your situation. Some people have shrimp boats, like Bubba Gump, and they don't want to leave their livelihood alone because it's there. But, life is the number one priority when it comes to, evacuations, if you decide to stay or go.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of people complaining the night before last saying, well, what do? I don't have money to stay in a hotel or to go away for 2 days, And there were a lot of those that just economically they couldn't do it. There's a lot of people living paycheck to paycheck these days. And, they don't have $500 or $600 to hop in the car, get gas, drive, 100 miles away and, get a hotel room. I did watch a lot of the damage videos. And to me, what I was seeing on Twitter last night was a lot of flooding in people's houses. Like, this guy, he was just beside himself. He was showing his kitchen, and the water was up to his waist in his kitchen.
Yeah.
And he's like, look at this, all new appliances, everything brand new. And it hit me again and destroyed everything in my kitchen. What am I going to do, And at that point, I'd be like, leave, go, move, But, yeah, I mean, I didn't really get to see anybody. A lot of the people I follow on YouTube who are preppers weren't in the area, so they weren't prepping for it because they weren't in the area. But I didn't get to see the general feel because I was busy doing videos, as a matter of fact. The general feel of what was going on with people saying, okay, I know I normally do a makeup blog, but today we're going shopping because I got to prep for the hurricane. With Katrina, I saw a lot of that. And I also saw a lot of it with some other recent storms in Florida where people were, shopping for the first time. It was really funny because one of the families that was shopping they were on this weird, alkaline, positive, vegan, whatever diet. And they were just grabbing like everything they could get. The kids were like, Mommy, can we eat this? I don't care. Put it in. Just get it, because they knew, they had to have some kind of food. But yeah, I didn't really see a lot of preparedness for this. But the interesting thing for me was it was literally 16 days to the day Katrina hit.
Wow, and, that's pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, literally, Katrina hit yesterday, 16 years ago. And this hit yesterday, 16 years ago. Again, another slow-moving storm with very high winds right over the Louisiana area. And all of New Orleans was without power. One of their main transmission lines broke off and went across the river, literally right into the river and across it. Some people, there were originally rumors that it hit a levee and broke it and it was flooding. But I didn't hear about that. I just knew that the whole town went out of power. And that's when, as a general rule, you should be ready with backup power, that you can carry portable, a small power station type thing, solar generator as people call them. You should have gear in your car already. So if you get stuck at work and you got to evacuate, in worst case scenario, go to a shelter or shelter in place at your work. You have food, you have water, supplies, clothing, whatever. And also, too, you should think about, if you're in an area that's going to get hit, but maybe isn't going to get flooded, well, you're certainly not going to venture out the next few days across roads with trees on them and everything. So you should
Right.
have food and water and everything ready. This one's going to take a while to recover from. There were still scars left over from Katrina because it hit so hard. And I'm to the point now where if I lived there after Katrina, I would have been gone. Just seeing the absolute ineptitude and how bad things got, I wouldn't have been hanging around again for another storm to hit me. It would have been like, so how does Kentucky look?
Yeah.
Like wherever, anywhere.
I personally was involved in two hurricanes in North Carolina when I was in the service station in Fort Bragg, and we were locked down. We were more miles in inland, and training stopped for just a couple of days, but it didn't stop for us. When it comes to physical fitness inside the barracks, but you know, lockdown being locked down, and being ready, and we weren't 100% locked down, in our rooms, where you just sit there and wait it out. But you know, the preparedness portion of it is getting yourself ready, your mindset. When you see something or the warnings of it, when it's the season is there. Uh, I normally, when I prepared, especially when I used to live over there in California. Yes, um, it wasn't bad weather, but for us it was when an earthquake's going to hit. Do you have the right tools ready to go? When to shut down your gas, your water, the power. You just know how to shut it down, and with precaution and having the right stuff to have for safety, which is your headgear. I always look for those construction type hats, or helmets that they provide in certain zones, and gloves that it can take, in case if there's a lot of debris outside. And I was the only one in my family, which is having my wife, my daughter, and my in-laws. They weren't into it. They were saying, it happens, but I believed, for myself ahead of time. So on earthquake weather, we called it sometimes, is the wind and paying attention to the animals. The animals will give you a warning hours before or even 30 minutes, before. But if that's at that time, it's too late. But when you know that you're prone for any type of event, it's a matter of when, not if. But hurricane season, it's every year. So every year so you have time to prep for it. You got time to get your materials, to secure your buildings, your homes. You got boards, you have nails, screws, you have like George was saying, power banks. You have some form of generator that can give you something. But evacuation plans. What is your route? Do you have rally points, especially when you have young adults that are still living with you, your kids? Is there a plan of action for them? I'm assuming that Louisiana going through a lot of this type of disaster, that they already have their own evacuation plan within the family. Here in southern Nevada, our deal is hot weather. When the power goes out, we have monsoon season. Yes, we do. And the monsoon season is the warning is we're talking about either a day or hours. So we were caught off guard for the extreme type of the monsoon that we received over here. It wasn't throughout the entire valley. It was a portion of the valley. But I myself was caught off guard because I was Ubering my parents around and listening to them. That's mistake number one. So, um, preparedness, it's part of life right now, your daily life. We have like the heat, we have the cold, and a lot of us work over there in Vegas, so we have to go over the hill, the mountain. And if you don't have the chains or the right tires, or know the routes when they close the highways, have to have an alternative way to get around an extra hour and a half. We personally, we deal with the minor type weather, that we have, but not like Louisiana.
Yeah, that was really bad.
Hmm.
That's the kind of, I mean, we got that storm the last month, and I mean that was probably as close to what we all have seen here to a hurricane,
Yeah.
with 80-mile-an-hour winds. And I'll tell you one thing: that sound from that wind was insane. I mean, it
Hmm.
was like 20 minutes of a freight train outside of your house, and I kept
Oh yeah.
going outside in it. I tried to open my garage door during it because I wanted to make sure the garage wasn't flooding, and the garage door wouldn't budge.
Too much pressure.
Yeah, the door from
Yeah.
my kitchen to my garage wouldn't open. There was too much back pressure in there. Not the garage door that opens for the car. Um, so that's something that yeah, it's nice to be prepared for something like that, but it's not as important here to be prepared for something like that. Say more for do you have a way to stop if there's bad rain during monsoon
Right.
season and your roof stops leaking? Do you have a bucket? Do you have plastic you can put on the floor? Do you have a way to catch the water? Do you have a way to get up on your roof and fix tiles maybe that are out of place? Do you have backup electricity? That night, our power flickered about 4 or 5 times really hard,
Oh, I did.
and but it came right back on. It was immediately right back on. But now here's something for myself, being internet related. One of the things I discovered is I need a different way to access the internet. Maybe a one of those little cellular
Oh, hotspots.
hotspots or something, because I absolutely had no way to access the internet for at least a day, other than my cell phone. And after a while, that will die too. So, having backup power out here, having a way to power, say, a cooling device, be it a fan, an air conditioner, a homemade little swamp cooler that you put together, and there's tons of plans for that on YouTube to make your own swamp coolers. That's really important for out here. Having to worry about 6 feet of water in your kitchen
Oh,
isn't going to
yeah.
happen out here. It might happen there, but not here. So you kind of have to know what you're preparing for.
Yeah, you
Um,
do.
but I generally tell people, if you get prepared for a week without power in your environment, wherever you live, you'll be best prepared for almost anything.
That's a good point.
Because power outages cause that kind of stuff that you'd be running into at a later date. You could lose your electricity, you could lose your lights, you could lose your air conditioning, your heating. Having a way to heat your house, even though now we're not thinking of that, having a heater that's safe to use indoors is really important too, and the fuel to run it. So that's more what I'm thinking of for us here, in this area.
Yeah, I watched some of the videos. Some of the reporting for Louisiana. How, like George was saying, this storm is creeping. It's not going full blown. Bypassing. It's just creeping and getting there. And so that hearing the reports and watching people deciding is, it makes you think. you know, like in the movie Heat, Robert De Niro, you got 30 seconds to decide whether you stay or go. And that's a individual's decision. But when you have a family, you can't be selfish. And being selfish could hurt not only you, but your family, could kill you or and your family. And like I don't know how Louisiana is. I only been there, for a month or two when I was in the service, and there's people out there have animals. You have to consider those, as part of your family because you brought them in, and you got to have a way to transport them for safety, or there's some place where you can have your animals, care. And but you got to factor in also, it costs money to transport and have a facility, overwatch your animals.
Yeah,
um,
and not only that, but you have to find a shelter
Shelter
that's
from.
willing to take in your animals. I mean, there's shelters that were telling people leave your animals in the car,
Oh yeah, right.
during Katrina, I remember. And people were like, "Well, you know what? I'll sleep in my car then. Fine. I'm not giving up my animals." So, that's kind of the deal. You got to be prepared for that kind of stuff. Um, you know, we were talking about people who couldn't afford to stay in a motel.
Right.
There are solutions for that, and it just requires previous planning. Instead of spending every single day $8 or $9 on coffee for you and your wife, or you and your husband, or whatever, you take that money and you save it. and you have an emergency fund. This is something I want to do next year for the summer here, because in the summertime, I find that's when most of the disasters for me happen financially. The car breaks down, the house has a problem. So I figure if I put $1,000 away, that's the deductible for my house insurance. If the whole house collapses, I pay $1,000 and they buy me and build me a new house.
Oh, that's a good
So
deal.
that's the idea. And there's pretty not much, too much at least, that isn't covered under warranty for my vehicle that would cost more than $1,000. So that's my goal. By this time, by the summer next year, I want to have $1,000 put away, cash in my safe, so that if something happens, I'm ready to go. I got it. It's set. And I'm safe.
That's a good plan. Having something like that, a goal. Imagine you save. For some of us, can probably save like $200, every month. And imagine 12 months of $200. How much money would you have, folks? It's a little chunk of change, but it's enough to get you by for a few days to a week. And if that's part of it, where you have a family, just you and your wife or a husband, but if you have a family with kids, you got to think about the amount you can proportion yourself and your family. Each member costs money. These things is part of the planning process when it comes to preparedness, survival, and then the thrive. The three important things: you got to prepare, you got to survive the main event, the shock and awe, and then thriving is living through it, the aftermath, or during the major event. So, like those people over there in Afghanistan, and a lot of Americans and those poor Afghan people that supported this effort that we had out there for 20 years. The thought that comes to my mind for those who have minutes to evacuate, and it sounds easy when you're talking about it, having preparedness, having your bags, but when you're running for your life and you don't know if you're going to make it towards the gate, and you got to have a well planned, route and evacuation, but
And if you do have an evacuation route,
mhm,
you should have two, maybe even three.
yeah,
A lot of us, I remember way back in the beginning when I moved here, a lot of people were like, I just go live up in the hills. I drive up Wheeler Pass. Well, what happens if Wheeler Pass is unpassable? What are you going to do then? Are you going to do that in your little VW Bug or your little Hyundai? It's not going to happen. So that's something to think about too. You need different ways of getting to where you need to go, especially if you have a bug out location. Like, let's say you have a bug out location in, I don't know, Armagosa, and you're going to take the same route you always take to get to Armagosa, but that's closed. We've had bad snowstorms
oh
where
yeah,
that road has been closed off. So how are you going to get there? Is there another way around that you can go? Can you go in through California through that way? So you have to plan out different routes to get to where you're going. With Afghanistan, I'm just thinking, I can imagine if I lived for 20 years somewhere. Let's say the average person, the average NGO employee, lived there about 10 years, okay? And you had the protection of the military. You were working for, say, like the Red Cross or some do-gooder type organization, and you were just a civilian. And then one day, a soldier comes knocking on your door saying, hey, you got to go.
yeah.
And you're looking around your place that you've had 10 years of memories in and pictures and stuff. And now, yeah, even if you're prepared and you got your bug out bags right there and ready to go, again, yeah, you're running for your life, but common sense in the back of your head says, hey, I want to get this. And, oh, I think I have that glass I wanted to save. And what about my coffee mug and my favorite picture of this guy I met? And, you run into that. So there's still that feeling of, when you have to evacuate, and every time you have to evacuate, you kind of have to think about, you take one last look and say, I may not ever see any of this again. And you leave.
One experience I have when I was 23, 20, I believe 23, 24, and I was in Israel. I had some time off, from my military duty, and I stayed in a hospital inside, by Tel Aviv. The reports came in when the first bomb exploded. you know, I was, you know, I was waking up, from a good night, having a good time out in Tel Aviv, and the sound of it, and then the knock on your door to your room, and the manager from England said, "Hey, every man's for themselves. It's the announcement came out that they're looking for Americans and European type those people. So everything is based out of my backpack, and it's very light because you can't take a lot when you cross borders. You got to take the bare minimum. But the number one thing is I always had a map. I always knew where the U.S. embassy, and and I had my multinational pass, ID.
Multi-pass.
Oh yeah, multipass.
Multi-pass.
So, and knowing, doing a map recon, knowing where the safe places and stuff like that is, for 22, 23, 24 years old, I was,
Yeah, and
young man.
you bring up a good point too. It's nice to have a GPS. It's nice to be able to look at Google Maps and sit there and go, okay, maybe I can go this. But having a map in front of you, it's quiet. It doesn't require internet service. If the bomber
Yeah.
takes out the local ISP, you put the map on the floor and you go, all right, I got this road here, and you can plan. You can actually plan right there on the map with nothing required. And I saw something that I was thinking about the other day. I believe it was an episode of Pawn Stars, actually.
Oh,
And they were, I believe it was World War II fighter pilots were given these black plastic containers. They kind of looked like a cell phone. And when you cut it open, it had 3 rings in it and 4 gold or 5 gold coins. And that was to get you out of trouble.
barter.
Let me out of here. You know what? I know you're a guard. I know you're not supposed to, but you know what? Here's 2 gold coins if you let me through that gate. That's something to think about too. I know a lot of people that carry some very nice shiny silver coins with them, that look like they're worth a whole lot of money.
Oh yeah.
You can get your way out of some sticky situations. Now that's of course not going to work with police. I don't want you guys
No.
trying to bribe the cops here, But I'm talking about in a worst case scenario,
Yeah.
where maybe somebody's willing to look the other way and let you through for a couple $100 in gold or silver.
It does help.
That makes a lot of sense. And it turns out this thing with 2 gold coins and 5 gold coins and 2 gold rings in it, sealed still. They X-rayed it. They saw the gold inside, and it was worth about $5,000.
Wow, that's
And
pretty
that's
good.
not even the gold value. That's what it was worth to a collector unopened. The other one had been opened. So that's something to think about too. In a worst case scenario, what things do you have that are valuable that you can trade? And first thing people are like, I just give them one of my guns. You don't want to be pulling out a gun in front of somebody who's
Yeah.
telling you not to pass. Hang on one sec. Here, let me give you this. You'll be dead. Things like that have significant value to people, even in times of trouble, are really handy for that kind of a thing. But that's a little far fetched for us locally
Yeah.
here. I don't think we're going to have to bribe the
No.
UN to let us through 372 without our COVID passport.
It depends on the region you're in. Here in the States, you got to know your sister states. East, west, north, south, and understand. That when there's a disaster, they're willing to to allow you to cross the borders and stuff.
Yeah.
There's no big deal on it. We don't have the Gestapo checkpoints, but when you evacuate folks, George brought up a good thing. When it comes to important paperwork, you got to have a backup system when it comes. There's paper, and then there's your electronic paper. So if one fails, you have something that will bring it up. So,
Right.
and or make copies of your paperwork, and then secure what you have in a nice location or in a safe, container.
What I've done for my important documents, and I still have a few things to do, but everything's grabbable where I'm at, is for my important stuff, including even my driver's license. I scanned it on my scanner, made copies of it, and put it on an encrypted drive.
Yeah.
Little encrypted thumb drive. I believe the thumb drive was like $74. They sent it to me to test years ago, and I kept it and been using it ever since. Now, periodically, I'll go in there and update, like when I get a new driver's license or new CCW or whatever, I'll go in there and scan it and update it and put it on there. And it is encrypted with a password, so you can't get into it. But I also have all of my any kind of emergency money, all of my paperwork, everything. I can literally grab my bug out bags, load them in my car, grab that stuff, and be out of my house in under 30 seconds if I had to.
That's a good point. how much time do you have when you're given the order to, you need to leave? Do you have 30 seconds? Do you have 15 minutes? Sometimes they don't give you that.
Yeah.
They just say you need to leave now.
Yeah, and it's not always some kind of, horrible unrest or
Hmm.
bombing or something. Sometimes as simple as your next door neighbor has a bad gas leak and their propane tank is leaking. You need to get out of your house right now, and it's the fire department knocking on your door. Well, yeah, we'll get you set up with the Red Cross and we'll get you in a shelter tonight, probably in Vegas. We don't know. And you're outside in the elements for 4 or 5 hours while they do all their little methods.
You
And
went through that once with your wife, right?
no, we
In the
never had that
hospital.
happen. In the
You never.
hospital?
Well, oh, you saw somebody living out of the car, right?
Living out of their car,
Car.
yeah, that
Yeah,
it happened to.
yeah.
But
So.
yeah, that's something to think about, or you have a house fire.
Hmm.
You don't have 30 seconds then. You wake up, there's smoke everywhere, there's fire in the hallway. You grab, of course, you have a fire extinguisher by your bed. You grab your fire extinguisher and you spray down the fire. You run into your storeroom, you grab your bag, and you go. You may have 10, 15 seconds, not even that. What if there's somebody in your family that gets sick? Um,
Hmm.
you know, you're going to bed one night and someone in the house has a heart attack, and you got to race them to the hospital, or you got to follow the ambulance to the hospital. You grab your go bag and go. Now, yeah, you're probably not going to need a water filter and a tent while at the hospital. So you may want to set up different bags for family emergency, long term, short term. But it's still good to have a full bug out bag. You can always take that stuff out once you get to your destination. And if you have to sleep in your car, you've got food, you've got water, you've got a way to collect water. You can go to the hospital, fill up your water container. That kind of a thing. If you have to be somewhere quickly in an emergency, is handy. It's not always some kind of end of the world zombies
Right. No.
disaster. Sometimes it's a little personal disaster. Just like with prepping, I tell people, we're prepping with tons of food for, say, a food shortage that could happen, or a trucking strike, or whatever happens. It could be a major nationwide thing. But what happens if you lose your job? That stuff comes just as in handy. If you got to float a few weeks or a month, you got food to eat, you've got supplies, maybe you've got enough toothpaste, soap, whatever you need. You can always restock it after the emergency, but that's more on a personal level. So that's why I like to think of preps as insurance. And I
Right.
always laugh when people are like, well, you preppers, you just want something bad to happen. I'm like, so you buy car insurance because you want to get into a car accident?
Yep.
It didn't make sense. To me, it's insurance. It's a way to keep myself safe should something happen. And that would be something else I wanted to bring up, because one of the things I did notice about this hurricane, whatever, last night is a lack of communication. When that big tower went down with the power, it also took down a lot of cell networks. So Zello and all that stuff wasn't working out of there. There is a really handy thing to watch disasters live unfold. And especially since the cellular networks have become so much
Right.
more robust over the years, there's a thing called, what Snapchat is, right? Well, it's maps.snapchat.com, and they're called a snap map. You can look at the United States and see red, blue, whatever colors of where there are a lot of little Snapchats being shot. And you can zoom in. So I zoomed in on New Orleans last night, and I was watching all these people, and then you saw like there was a certain part where after that point, there were no more new videos because there was no cell service. So that's why I kind of brought this along. This is a little dual bander, some Zastone brand, HT. I have it all programmed. It was sent to me to review, and I reviewed it, and they let you keep them. So I programmed it up, and something as simple as this with a ham radio license, you would be amazed at how helpful something like this is. I was listening on the HF Hurricane Net, and I was listening to people on 40 meters on HF, or shortwave, as most of us know it, um, talk about sending traffic reports and damage reports, and and the net control was giving weather for the next hour, how it was going to be, you know, and they were really interacting with everything, and they were also able to pass traffic back and forth. And I was hearing people like, hey, I got this guy here. He wants to let his grandmother know in New Jersey that he's okay. And somebody would pick that up and they'd make the call to somebody else. And somebody, say, in Delaware, would pick up the phone and call this woman and say, hey, my call sign's W6UTC. I'm a ham radio operator. We do a traffic net, and I just wanted to let you know that your grandson's okay. He sent a message out via the national traffic system. So having something like this even, and a ham license, which is fairly simple to get now.
Yeah, it
It's just a
is.
matter of studying online, and you can take practice tests too. Is really invaluable. And I mean, these things are not super expensive anymore. I mean, what I'm holding here back, say, 10 years ago would be $400. Now they're like 70 and $80. Some of it's because they're made in China. Some of it's because the other companies were really ripping people off for what they were getting. And you'll have older hams and hams that have a big investment in those older radios tell you, oh, they transmit out of band, they're terrible, they're horrible. They're nowhere near as bad as what you're hearing. So getting yourself a ham license and a ham radio, and having a base station is good, and having a station in your house is good. But also, if you live in an area where there's hurricanes, have a plan to take your antennas down so they don't get destroyed. Once the thing passes, you can always put them back up. You can just put them on a pole.
Yeah,
And once it comes, you unloosen the pole, put it down. Had I known that storm the other month was going to be so bad, I would have pulled my antennas down. Thankfully, they all made it through like nothing happened.
that was a good thing.
Shocked.
But here in the station,
I went out after the wind, okay, and it was still pouring rain. And I went out there fully dressed, looked up at my antennas with my flashlight, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They're all still there. Now, it was pouring rain, and I was soaked being out there for less than 30 seconds. But I was happy that my antennas made it. I was shocked they made it. But here at the station, the big tower that does our AM broadcast, our FM broadcast, was down. Yeah, it got torn right down.
twisted, then
Yep.
snapped in half. It's these things are important. You learn from our experience. And so you won't make those mistakes. So we personally, we're here at the station at KPFB 98.1 FM, and myself, George, and Mr. Producer, and others, that have their own programs. We learn by our own experience, and so we push it out over the air, so you guys can have that knowledge that by listening to us and then hearing our experience, what we went through in our own, like we say, our own personal disasters,
Right.
and we learn every single time. I learned that it's good to have a truck during monsoon season, a good truck, decent tires, and make the right decisions. But when you're caught off guard, like we have, some of us did, in our little storm, Category 1 winds, and the flooding. So driving a small little car, it's economical, but it's not worth it. Driving through a flood, you're getting up to
Yep.
about 2 feet of water.
Yeah, I mean, I have Jeep Liberty. It's 4-wheel drive. And I was driving home in that because I started to hear the rain, and I was like, you know what? I better get home, because it started sounding like it was really bad. And just as I was on 160 coming back from, because I took the shortcut up Game Bird in 160, I had to go down because 160 was flooded already.
It was
And
fast.
every street I took from there to where my house is by Blag and Calvada, every single street was flooded with like 2 to 3 feet of water. I just put my thing in 4-wheel drive. I put it in 4-wheel low, actually, and I went about 5 miles an hour all the way home. Now, there were points where I could feel the front end of the car coming up, but I was able, with 4-wheel drive, to get the front back down onto the ground, and, I made it. But would I choose to drive in that?
No,
Heck no.
no, never.
I
again.
had to get home,
I was, I was getting stressed out because I can hear my mom praying out loud. My dad wanted to go get a burger, and that's all he cared about. I need my burger. But, with his dementia, when you have people that are having, that are senior, like my parents, hearing their frustration, one wants a burger. My mom is praying out loud, and I'm trying to find better ways to get home and get out of this storm. And I learned from that.
Yep.
Never listen to them when it comes to making decisions. Going to in the middle of a storm.
Yep.
Yeah. So I learned things, folks, and I hope you guys learn things.
Yep.
Katrina is a valuable lesson, and just go over the video from the past, and you'll see what people have done, and you'll understand, not to make those mistakes. It's sad
Yeah.
to learn from those who made those mistakes, but but in a good way, you'll understand for the future. If if you live in those zones or those regions in this country. And normally, if you're in Arizona, you get those giant the mummy sandstorms. What do you do when your vehicle is getting peppered with sand and it just sandblasts your paint job? And do you ever check your air filter for your vehicle? You got to
Yeah.
check it. Especially
Yeah.
here, we get a lot of dust. You know, I mean, dust flying everywhere.
Yeah. If you park your vehicle in your garage every night,
Hmm.
you'll probably do a whole lot better. I know there's some people that use their garage as their dump room or whatever.
Right.
I have a full YouTube studio in there, plus prep storage, plus a scooter, plus my car. And I mean, everything's in there nice and neat and organized. But I think it's a good idea, especially in a desert environment, to put your car inside. You'll be amazed at how much less crud you'll get, how much less filters you'll need to change. My cabin air filter, when I bought my vehicle 2 years ago, it was used, and it was filthy. It was so filthy that I was like not getting any air when the air was on, barely getting any air conditioning. So I opened it up. YouTube University. I looked up where the cabin filter was, pulled it out, and the thing was just caked with sand. I guess the vehicle previously had been outside all the whole time. And I cleaned it all up, dumped it out, got a new one, and I swear that it blows perfectly. It blew perfectly right after that. So that stuff, if you park outside a lot, if you park your vehicle outside, and if you don't have indoor parking, like if you live in an apartment complex that just has maybe covered parking,
Yeah.
check your, make sure your vehicle's ready to go. It drives me nuts. I'm waiting for a part for my air conditioning that's covered by my warranty.
Oh, for at least 3 weeks.
Yeah, and finally on September 8th and 9th, they're going to put the car in there and do it because it's a 2-day job because they got to take off the dashboard. But it's finally come in, and it drives me nuts that it isn't done yet because it's like I just want the vehicle to be ready in case there's an emergency. But you don't have to take it that far. The AC does work; it's just not as cold as it should be. Anyway, having your oil changed. I mean, I had my oil changed today. I went to Walmart. Some people hate them. I think they do a good job. I've never had a problem with them, but you know, having the vehicle serviced, maintained, having your tires in good shape, knowing your vehicle and knowing its capabilities. Like now, I know. I didn't by any choice want to drive through all that water, but I know my vehicle can do it now.
Right.
If I ever got stuck again, I wouldn't be as nervous. But yeah, having that stuff ready to go, changing out your air filters, especially your your engine air filter, is really important.
Oh yeah.
I put a new one in the first day I got the car. I got it home and changed out the cabin filter. I learned how to do that, and then changed out the air filter, and both were really dirty. And I guess the guy used to take this thing off road all the time, so that's how it got dusty. Although it was in amazingly brand new shape, still is in great shape. So that's something to think about. If you park your vehicle outside, is it maintained? Do you have the filters cleaned out? When was the last time you had your oil changed? Is your gas tank more than 3/4 full? Now,
Good point.
what did I read the other night? I even put it on my Facebook page and I forgot. Something shut down. I think it was refineries in near Louisiana shut down.
Yeah, they shut down.
So expect higher gas prices. The highest I saw today was by the roundabout on 372 in Blag, and it was like for premium, it was $4.30 a gallon. Now it's interesting how they've kind of gotten us used to. Wow, remember when a dollar was cheap? And I remember when I was a little kid and it was 50 cents. And wow, remember when it was under a dollar? And people were complaining because it was $1.13 or something. And I still remember when I first moved to California in '96, it was a dollar something. It was like $1.73, and that's California. So it was cheaper in the rest of the country. So
I remember,
now is the time to make sure your cars are gassed up. If you can do it safely, have a gasoline storage, treated gasoline. I like to use what is it, the red stuff I buy in the store.
Oh, you're talking about
Stable.
Stable, yeah.
I like to use Stable. I've had gas as old as 2 and 3 years old. Put it in my lawnmower to, just to use it up, and it's fired it up perfectly. I've even accidentally put it in my vehicle sometimes, and it's worked fine. So having gas stored is a good idea if you can do it safely.
I did that during our little flooding and storm, Category 1 winds, because everything was flooded, not pretty much, but, central of the town of Pahrump. and I needed to fuel up my truck, and I was like, a wrong time to have, a little under half a tank. But I remembered I had some fuel stored up, about 20 gallons, because my truck takes a lot
Yeah.
for being a Nissan, So I went up there, just start pouring the fuel, and it came on the perfect time. It's just like George was saying. If you put stable, and it's been stored for a while in the safe conditions, you can't go wrong.
Yeah. Now
And
you'll get people that will tell you if
oh
you
yeah,
store ethanol gas for 6 months, it's essentially water and useless. Not true. I
no,
am living proof of that.
same
Um,
here.
yeah, so it's a good idea if you can get some. If you do store it, I always suggest metal, military surplus, or
Oh, yeah.
current metal gas cans. The plastic ones are good in a pinch if that's all you can get, but I would prefer the jerry cans, the metal jerry cans. They're a little more expensive, but it's peace of mind. There's not going to be fumes leaking out of them. I open mine after the summer and burp them. Usually, I don't do it during the summer, but after the summer's over, when it's been
Oh,
really hot in my storage area,
expansion.
I will open them up and they will, they'll sometimes they'll spit gas forward, and I just have to go, okay, everything stop, because they're under a lot of pressure because the fumes are escaping when you open it, but they won't escape while they're not open, and the plastic cans always leak.
Oh, they do. Trust me. I have military grade plastic cans and also metal cans, the NATO type,
Yep.
and it's good to have the cans, but you got to make sure you have the nozzles to go with it.
Yeah,
And
because you'll get a real big mess if you
you
don't.
do, and then you have some form of funnel that you can just so you won't make a
Hmm.
bigger mess, without it. Because they try to pour fuel into your vehicle without a funnel, without a nozzle,
Yep.
and you'll lose maybe a small percentage, but you're going to have fuel all over the place,
That's
and
the
it's
danger.
dangerous.
See, yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, you got. I mean, you think about it. What could cause a spark?
your
If
cell
it's the
phone.
dry season and you
Hmm.
got, your hands are staticky, whatever. I mean, anything could set that off. So when you're fueling your vehicle for the first few times, I would suggest doing it outside of your garage or not near your house. Just to learn how you do it and how it works. You can very easily overfill it, and you got to watch out for that too. But that way, if some gas spills, you just let it evaporate and drive the car in.
Right.
But yeah, it's a good idea to have some gasoline stored, um, especially with the potential of prices going up for a
Right.
while.
We have issues here when it comes to having your vehicle prepped, and maintained. uh, I was driving my mom's Honda, from Vegas, and we were on an appointment, and there was a little rainstorm that it was happening on the hill. So I turned on the wipers, and I started seeing the separation of wiper and blade, and I go, Mom, when's the last time you replaced it? I go, Son, it was last year. And I go, well, here in southern Nevada, the extreme heat eats up rubber, plastic, paint, anything that deals with some kind of petroleum base.
Yeah.
And so it dries it up. So I go, well, we're going to have to replace it. And during the time when
Hmm.
you have your vehicle service, which is she's going to do it next week after I pointed out a few things. I had to do the same thing, but I normally do it with myself. My mom doesn't want me to do it
Yeah.
because she goes, "No, I'd rather have it service
Yeah.
done so you can
What I
guarantees it."
do with my wipers, especially, is when I see them start to streak,
Hmm.
I immediately just go down to one of the auto parts stores or Walmart, buy the right size, slap them on there. For about 10 years, when I had my Suburban, the rear wiper was a really odd size and hard to find. And the funny part was, a year before I sold it to the dealership and bought my Jeep, I finally found the wiper. It was like so nice to be able to turn on that rear window wiper and it actually worked. But yeah, once you start seeing them streak, the rubber's been damaged and the edges aren't sharp anymore on the blade, and you want to get rid of them. Another neat trick to do is I'm bad with things tonight. I'm not remembering the stuff to clean your
Dashboards?
windows with.
A Windex?
No, not Windex. It's something that treats the windshield so the water rolls off.
Oh, Rain-X?
Rain-X. Put Rain-X on your windshield. First of
Hmm.
all, most of the time, even during really heavy rainstorms, you won't even need your wipers.
Yeah.
You will not believe how amazing it just goes right off your windshield like a sheet. You don't even see it. And it's also a little bit easier on your wiper blades too because it keeps the bugs and stuff off it. I usually do that twice a year. Like I'll do it before the summer, and then right after the summer, I'll wash the car down. Whenever I wash the car down one day, and I'll do Rain-X on the. They also work good on solar panels as well. Keeps your solar panels clean, keeps them from getting that white kind
Oh,
of
the
calcium
cows.
buildup, and it also keeps the dust off them too. With Rain-X on them, you just go up there, spray off some water, the water rolls off, and you're good.
I used to do that a lot over there in Southern California
Mm-hmm.
because we have a lot of rain, and Rain-X, 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 and a lot of the guys, will say, "Hey, did your Rain-X your windshields?" I go, "Nah," and we have a little party, say there's Rain-X. So, but anyways, we got about another 15 minutes, and I did a little bit of what you call weekend shopping, and one of the first things that I came across is at Attic Fanatics. It was a few things that I purchased, and plus this tub and these binoculars. Well, everything was about $40, including the ammo. And I look up this ammo from Hornady. It's 8x56 Hun. Man, it's an old World War II type rifle that's similar to the Mosin Nagant. These go for about $31, and I got it for 15. And then the rest was all, you know, ones and twosies. I piled everything up, and the young lady said, "You know what? Just give me $40 for everything, and including the binos." So mosquito net in the package hasn't been opened, and my mag light,
Good old fashioned mag light.
two
Yeah.
cells. The only thing I have to do with it is clean the inside, like George mentioned,
There's a
and
little bit of corrosion in the middle where the battery had gone bad on the aluminum.
and then exchange the light bulb from standard to LED or maybe Krypton. That's a simple job, but what costs a lot is your bulb. And then I got a headlamp. I can never go wrong with headlamps, and this one does work.
Yeah, and I'll tell you one thing. I was not a believer in headlamps until
There it is.
just a casual power outage one day, and I had one that I just reviewed, and I'd seen all the bushcraft guys saying, "You got to get a headlamp. Oh, headlamps. They need flashlights." And I tried one on. It was just sitting on my counter. I just reviewed it, and I put it on, and I walked around my house. And I'm like, "Oh wow, this is awesome! Not having to hold a flashlight while doing everything one handed." So I'm a big believer in headlamps. So when you see them,
Oh yeah,
and like you were saying before the show, somebody shows up and says, "Hey, I don't have a headlamp. Do you have an extra one?" You give them you give them that one. You didn't pay a fortune for it. If they drop it in the toilet, you don't care.
Yeah,
It didn't get ruined.
that's another subject matter. Why I buy certain things because
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Producer said, "Ed, what happens if you somehow leave this world? What's going to happen with all your stuff?" I go, "Well, maybe before I leave this world, I'm going to give it away to, you know, maybe my daughter will have a fun time, but I'll designate certain things to my buddies." And I so, but it's good to have ones, twos, threes, and fours, and when people, friends, and stuff and they don't return your tools or they return them in not in the right condition, you give them the $2 ones. Like I have this multi plier thing, multi-purpose type, Leatherman. It's a copy of it. It's made in Chinaville, and it's included in this. So when somebody ask me for, "Hey, can I buy your multi-tool?" I go, "Sure," because I always see you with that Leatherman or Gerber. No, I'm not gonna give him no Leatherman Gerber.
Yeah,
I'll
no.
give him this China one.
It is important, I mean, if people are going to show up and need things, or if people are going to ask you to borrow
There you go.
things during emergencies, it is kind of handy to have stuff that you don't mind lending out.
No, yeah, that's a good point. See, these things, like Mr. Producer said, you got so much. I go, yeah, I do. I have brothers, but now they live in uh, California. Yeah, yeah. Anyways, I always give them whenever they show up. I go, "What do you guys need?"
Yep.
Guess what? I didn't give them my good stuff. I go, "Here." To them, it's just a tool, but for us here,
Yeah, we're gear junkies.
yeah,
We're like, oh, it's not a Leatherman. Why would you use that?
So those are the things we'll pawn off to those we don't care about. The other thing is some glow sticks, and yeah, you can't go wrong with glow
Yeah,
sticks.
because this year when you go to EDC and you got your costume on, you look really good in that.
Oh yeah, I got pink, blue, yellow, green, and so then my binos, was part of the deal from Simmons, and George checked them out. He said they're good.
Yeah, these things are like really old and really heavy.
Yeah.
So I picked them up and I'm like, okay, maybe they were back when Simmons made good quality stuff. And I just took them and focused them about, 5 yards away at the air conditioner. And you could read the print on the air conditioner. I'm like,
Not
okay, so
bad.
these are good. These really nice glass in them. They could just use a little cleanup. And, again, you paid pennies on the dollar for them. So if somebody said, hey, can I borrow? They'd think they got a deal, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
And you got to remember, too, barter items. If things go really bad and you don't have money for something and somebody wants something of yours, there's a barter item. And you're not giving them junk. You're actually giving them something quality. It's just older.
Yeah. The other thing, I picked up some Daisy pellets for 177, and I've been lazy on my pellet guns, pellet rifles, so I need to stock up on the lead. And this was part of the deal that I got. It's not all set up right there for you guys when you go out and look for things. You got to go through their store and pick left and right.
Yep.
And sometimes you bypass, something that you didn't see. So when you make your second rounds or your third rounds, I go, oh,
Yeah, we've done that. Like I went to Addict
mm,
Fanatics earlier in the day. He goes later. And I'm like, yeah, look at this thing I got. Where'd you find that? I walked all over that place. I'm like, it was right at the table by this. Oh, I didn't even go over there. So yeah, we've done that to each other.
The other thing is, everybody likes Post-its, right? I use them a lot for the radio program and stuff. So I'm going to donate this to Mr. Producer so he stops
I
crying
thought you were
about.
gonna save them in your stash.
No, I got to
Write little notes like, shoot UN troops.
Post-its.
Aliens invading. Go to bug out location.
Yeah, you can post them on your boobs, Mr. Producer. Yeah, he does. He's a Sasquatch. So all this for $40, and to me, what is worth the $40 is a little bit of everything because I know what I can do
Yep.
with them. And so,
And a lot of people do that, and that's how they make a secondary income.
yeah, they do.
It doesn't have to be survival gear.
No.
If you're looking to save extra money for your preps, you go shopping at the thrift stores. You take a light like that home, clean it up, wash it off, put a new light bulb in it, sell it for $50. Vintage, rare, hard to find.
The key word people are using, vintage.
Yep.
It's just old junk, folks. Anyway, the other thing on the trip to Vegas after the VA appointment, I picked this up from REI. I didn't know they have a little garage section where things are used and stuff like that. People return. And this was one of them. My dad caught it. He saw it. He wanted to look at the hatchets. And one was priced at $154, made in Switzerland. This is made in Germany. And someone didn't like it, so they returned it. It was it was scratched up, a little bit dull, but everything else is nice. So it's really, really good. For $140, this is marked. I got it for $40.83.
And all it needs is somebody to just fix up the edge a little bit.
Yep. And guess what?
It looks like somebody used one of those vertical polishers and had it too low to the blade and scratched the heck out of the blade as well. They polished the edge up really nice. They got it nice and sharp, but they got scratches on the edge of the blade. So it looks kind of messy, but it works.
It works.
And it's an awesome little camp axe, and it's very well made. You can feel the weight on that thing.
And good leather. Good leather.
Yep, nice little leather sheath.
And so, I forgot to mention, what they did is put some kind of form of like a liner here. It's like, what you do in your
Is that
truck
that
beds.
dip it stuff?
Yeah, it's kind of dip it stuff. And I like it, And this also not only could be chopping wood, but when it comes to, defense, guess what?
Yeah,
The Viking will come out of you.
Nobody's going to stand around and wait for you to hit him with that. That's for sure.
So, but if you go around, folks, I'm not saying travel outside your zone, go to Vegas and then you come back, Ed, I didn't find anything. Well, no, it's not by
No, you use the local stores.
stores.
I mean,
Yeah.
you could be coming home on Saturday from doing grocery shopping. Oh, let's stop here real quick
Yeah, that's
and
all
run
it
in
is.
and look around, see what's there. You would be amazed at the stuff both of us have found in these local, secondhand stores and Goodwill and I know some people don't like this store, some people don't like that store. You got to learn to say, I don't care about the store. I want to just go in and see what's in there because you never know what you're
Exactly.
going to find in there. And remember, it's about your personal survival. It's not about that store's policies or politics. I know I mentioned Goodwill on YouTube sometimes, and people are like, oh, Goodwill doesn't donate all the money. I'm not there for that.
No, no.
I'm there because I want to see what's for sale that I can pick up and use for my personal survival. You know, I know that sounds kind of selfish, but sometimes people get so wrapped up in the minutia of other companies that they don't pay attention, and they'll limit themselves to where they'll shop because of it.
You know, I get some of the friends and people I know. He goes, whenever you find stuff, can you go out, look for stuff that I need? I go, well, you're gonna have to donate some cash.
Yeah.
It costs to drive around. Then it costs, when you get hungry, So you got to explain to those who are lazy to go and look. And I'm set, but I'm always looking to find a deal, and because I know a dude that knows a dude that needs something,
Yeah.
that's
And you
willing
have
to
a
pay.
shop too
Yeah, I do.
that you can sell the stuff in.
Um, I'm still, folks. I know I announced it about 2-3 weeks ago. I'm still working on my YouTube channel. I'm figuring out all the gremlins that I'm doing. Buying the camera equipment. I finally got one of these lights with a tripod, umbrella. So tripods are important. So I go to my local shops here. I'd rather give them the money to go to Vegas, and because Vegas is a little high. So I finally got my tripods and stuff
Hey,
like
my
that.
first tripod I bought before I even had any idea I was going to do a YouTube channel. I
Hmm.
bought it in Goodwill for like $5 and figured, well, if I ever get a video camera, I'll probably, use it.
Hmm.
I had no idea I was going to do YouTube. This had to be like 2007. And that was the very first tripod that I used until it got broken by somebody who borrowed it, and they went and bought me a new one. But that was my first one, and I actually took a nut that was the same size as the screw, welded it onto a paper clip type thing, those black clips,
Yeah.
and used to stick my phone in it with some plastic, protecting the phone. And that's how I started doing YouTube videos. You want to talk about basic,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun,
Yep.
and
I mean, now I got camera gear and lighting and all this other stuff, but that's how I started.
a lot of the things that I get, folks. I know we have a few minutes left. Is just by chance looking around, finding that equipment, and I'm learning how to edit my videos. And then I found out that my iPhone 6, it started to take a dump. And so, yeah, I have to upgrade. I know I'm 6 generations behind, and I have to upgrade to the next level. You guys tell me. I know Mr. Producer would tell me, go, whatever it works. Uh, do I stick with Apple, or do I go to Samsung or something like that, an Android?
Yeah, I like Android for ease of
Yeah.
use. And the
So
fact that it's based on a Unix operating system, the
yeah,
Android system. I mean, Mac is a little bit too, but it's a little less, and it's a little more of a closed playground
yeah,
where you can't download a Mac OS app that's out of the store.
yeah.
With Android, you can set your phone to do that, and you can download pretty much anything. You can also root your phone and run it as you see fit, and not with Apple's little
Yeah,
guardian over you.
that's what I come across, trying to find out, these free downloads, and my God, Apple is not the easiest thing to work
Yeah,
for
it's
some of
not
the.
as supported as it
Yeah.
used to be.
Oh, that was that was one of the things. Since I'm about 6 generations below from the what is current, so this 4G is now being outdated by 5G, and this 5G is just taking over everything, and then I'm having issues getting support on that. They're when I make certain phone calls or inquiries about hey, what should I do? Guess what? Well, upgrade. Well, I'm at that point.
Yeah.
So next week I'm going to upgrade, so I should be good. I already got my laptop computer from Samsung, so I might as well go
Cool.
the same route. So I know I've been delaying all this time, but it's just
And you know what? That's important too because we use our phones so much now
exactly.
that, during an emergency, even if the phone towers are down, we're still going to be using them. There's still stuff on there. There's calculators. There's stuff we're going to use. You can use it to do videos, to document how you got through this. There's a lot you can do with it. So it's important to have your gear up and ready and,
That's
upgraded.
a good point. I watched this movie. It was The End of the World. with all those comedians on there. I think it's called The End of the World. World's End. There you go. Uh, you got Seth Rogen, you got James Franco, and all them, and they're living in California, living the life, being a movie stars, film actors and stuff. And guess what? They're all locked in their own James Franco's home, and they had a camera from one of his props, one of his movies, and they start video recording. This might be the last day, and other things. And they're talking about their friends. So, Mr. Producer gave me the finger, like he always does, in a good way. Thank you for joining us here with After the Crash. I'm Ed Ledesma.
And I'm George Cox.